Hello, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this People's Assembly live broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Please share this live. Share everywhere that you can. It is the number one thing that you can do to spread the People's Assembly's message and increase our reach. So my name is Laura Pidcock. I am the National Secretary of the People's Assembly, and time after time in this pandemic, we have come together with activism and meetings in response to government decisions, and never has it been more important than this issue tonight. The nurses have been offered a 1% pay increase, is how it's been termed. It certainly isn't a pay increase, and we'll be deconstructing that tonight. A nurses union have set up a £35 million fund to prepare for possible strike action. Who would have thought I would be saying that over the proposed 1% pay rise? And I honestly just can't even say 1% pay rise, because we know it isn't. We know that this is a pay cut. After every single thing that nurses, that those working in the health system have endured throughout this pandemic, to be offered a pay cut is adding insult to injury. It equates to £3.50 a week for nurses, and we'll be talking about why that's woefully inadequate when mixed in with inflation, all of the other costs that people have endured in this crisis, and price inflation and everything else. And I think one of the things that I'd like to get across tonight, although I'm going to be doing very little of the speaking actually, because we have the most incredible panel and I'm going to introduce them to you in a second, is the devaluation of the labour that these people have done throughout the entire crisis. So this would have been bad enough had this been 1 year ago. However, the people in the NHS have served us relentlessly throughout this crisis in some of the most difficult, some of the most harrowing, some of the most traumatic circumstances, to then be faced with a pay cut. You can't quite believe it, to be honest, but it is this government, it's Boris Johnson's government, and they must be resisted. So we're going to hear from the most incredible panel. These people have been at the forefront of this crisis. They have been there nursing people with the coronavirus. We also have Dr. Sonia Adesera, who is here in solidarity with the nurses' struggle too, and MP Zara Sultan, and we'll be hearing from her in just a little bit. But first, we have Holly Turner. She is from the GMB, and she is a nurse. I'm going to welcome you, Holly, to give us some opening remarks. I just want to, before you do come in, remind people to share, because honestly, you are going to want to hear what this panel have got to say tonight. Also, tag in your friends if you're battling with people who are saying, oh, well, it is a pandemic, we're going through a crisis, can the government really afford it? Please tag them in this live, because they need to see what is about to be said. So, Holly, it's over to you.
Thanks, Laura, and thanks for having me on tonight. Yeah, as Laura said, my name's Holly. I'm a nurse. I work in child and adolescent mental health services and have done for about the past decade, maybe just over. I want to just start briefly with putting the situation we're currently facing in the NHS into a little bit of context, reflecting on the past decade. I'd describe the decimation to our services with the NHS over that time as being absolutely brutal. Our waiting lists have increased rapidly. We're regularly faced with situations where there's no mental health beds in the country. And we're also, on top of that, faced with caring for people who are living in increased levels of deprivation due to, we know, the cruelty this government dishes out to the most vulnerable people in our society. But we know this year has been like a year we've never experienced before. We've felt completely undervalued for years. Our morale's been low for years. Yet everyone's stepped up. They've worked together with increased risk, with our colleagues becoming sick, our patients' dependence on us increasing all the time. And we know the government said, we'll give the NHS whatever it needs, but we know that was a lie. We didn't really expect anything different. It's just another in a string of lies from this government. So thinking about that, it's no surprise we've got over 40,000 nurse vacancies in the NHS when we've seen our pay cut by a fifth. there's actually 100,000 vacancies, and a prediction is that that will rise to about 250,000 by 2030. And for me, working in the NHS, this absolutely terrifies me, because we're already on our knees. We're already battling against unsafe staffing levels, which are impacting on our patient care. And like, we can't forget, it's impacting on the physical and emotional well-being of the staff as well. So that's why we're fighting for a fair pay rise, and obviously have been offered the insult of a 1% pay increase. I can't even call it a rise. And it's not just about nurses. I know we have nurses representing the campaign on this call tonight, but it's about everyone: our porters, our domestics, healthcare support workers, all of the others. And we need to support all of our colleagues across Agenda for Change and make sure that they're all paid fairly, because everyone is critical to the running of the NHS. And without every single one of them, the system will fall, and it will. So that's why we all need to stand together and fight for this. It's just not right that people are working 40 plus hours a week to survive. People are getting second jobs just to make ends meet. It's completely wrong. Now, I love my job and my colleagues and my patients, but in order to do our job properly, we need the safe staffing levels. And without this restorative pay increase, things are just not going to change. They're just going to get even worse and even more desperate. We know that we work in the largest safety critical profession in the UK. So how can we be expected to retain our skilled and experienced staff when they're repeatedly beaten down and degraded by this government, and we're facing a recruitment crisis? So we know the government, in their arrogance, they've pushed it a bit too far this time. We know we've got the majority of the public on side, so we just need to keep building, mobilising, organising. So NHS workers watching, please get active in the fight for fair pay to make things better for all of us. We don't have to accept an insulting 1% pay offer, and we don't have to accept colleagues relying on food banks and buying their own PPE from eBay. So make contact with your union, see how you can join the fight for pay justice, engage with your union reps, talk to colleagues, join social media groups, and speak to people in your communities. We need public support, but we do need public action as well as just support. We can't fight this alone. Our NHS, we know it was built through unity, and it's when we all work together to oppose this government that we can work together to save it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. There is absolutely no doubt that you have the public support on your side. I just want to, before you kind of disappear, that I just wanted to ask, how are you, Holly? How are things at work? I know you talked about the broad picture there, but how are you?
Oh, it's been incredibly tough. I've had COVID. My husband's had COVID. He's still off work. And the families that I support, in particular, like, they're living in such deprivation because of how things have been. I think, we know there's 5 million children living in poverty, which just puts increased pressure on the healthcare system. We're picking up so much. And then we're just getting treated like this. And it's no surprise that 1 in 3 nurses are wanting to leave.
It's absolutely incredible situation that we are in, and I don't know if people watching, and thanks, by the way, the views are increasing, so thanks for sharing. I can't imagine a more important meeting on this Monday evening. Is that how you feel like saying, how have we got here? How have we got here that there's nurses accessing food banks whilst also their actual job is nursing people through a global pandemic? It's absolutely unbelievable. Never mind the systemic insult to your entire profession of this announcement. Anthony Johnson, you're next. You're from Nurses United. Talk to us, please, about your experience and what you think.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and thanks as well for putting me on a panel with so many strong women, by the way, on International Women's Day. Solidarity to everyone. I mean, I think what we all know at the moment is that we're in a situation where this government thinks that they can push us around. They think that they can attack us. I think largely as well due to the fact that they think that this is potentially women's work, that, NHS workers care about the patients and that they're not going to be willing to fight for people. And I think that what we've started to see, and you've seen by the way that the RCM's responded, but all the unions now, is that people are recognising that there's such a strong link between patient safety and our pay. And it's no surprise that vacancy rates have gone up to 100,000 during the same period where we've lost a fifth of our pay since 2010. And it has been down to the hard work of the new nurses, the new NHS professionals who have been growing up as baby activists back in the day, doing things like Bursary and Bust, who you're seeing on the panel, but other activists who've got involved through things like NHS Pay 15, that things are changing now. There's a much more militant grassroots structure to unions, and they're going out there and they're going to go fight for things. Because I got involved with nursing because I wanted to care for my patients. I wanted to be able to make a difference to their lives. I wanted to be able to hold their hands when they're dying. And being a health visitor as well, I wanted to make sure that rather than spending my day doing the things that I do, which was basically just going to child protection meetings when things went wrong because we weren't able to do our job properly, we were actually going out there and we were promoting people's health and creating the concept that we could have a freedom to be healthy within this country. Because that's what we're all supposed to want, is to be able to care for each other. And I think that that's the important thing to contextualize in this conversation about 1%, is this government aren't doing this accidentally. They're doing this in a situation where people were putting their hands through gloves because they were so poorly made. We were wearing bin bags because the government thought that our lives were expendable. Nurses United kept a track of all the people who died during the pandemic. And all I spent my time doing was writing obituaries for people, normally women of colour, whose lives were just traded because this government thinks that they can get away with it, and they can get away with saying that our lives don't matter. And we know this now. We know that NHS professionals are truly respected. They're the most valued people within our communities. And when we get together, when we get organised, and when we start fighting and building power for ourselves, but also for our patients, to ensure that they're kept safe and that they're able to have access to the NHS that they deserve and want, that's when we're going to be able to win these things. And so I'm really ecstatic that all the unions, but also the RCN, has taken the actions that they have, because people need to go out there and they need to start mobilising and do the things and the hard work that we're going to need to be able to do to pass industrial action successfully. Because I don't know about you guys, but I'm totally ready for this fight, and I'm totally ready for the idea that if the government thinks they're going to be able to pick a fight with the nurses or the NHS workers, they're going to regret it, because the public are on our side. So definitely create WhatsApp groups, go start building up those networks, go out there and start going and having conversations with people, because it's your stories and your personal feelings about why this matters and why this is important that are going to win these things. Cheers.
Anthony, thank you so much. And it's nice to, well, it's not nice, but it's nice to hear the confidence in your voice, because this is a fight that is definitely worth having the public on your side. This is such a cherished system, and not only do we know about all of the privatization threats and the kind of trajectory towards this like US model style healthcare service, but then the attack on working people. And you're quite right, Anthony, to point out that it's not a binary between nurses and all of these wonderful people that are serving you in the NHS and people living in poverty, that there is a crossover because of the way that wages have been driven down and labour has been devalued. So thank you so much for that contribution. There's so many comments coming in, and please keep sharing this live. I don't even know whether I should mention it, but we're going to be finished by 8, so people can watch the Meghan and Harry interview if they want. If you want to do that, it's fine. That's up to you. I'm coming now to the brilliant Danielle Tiplady. She's an RCN activist and nurse. I want to hear from you next, please.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I am a nurse and I currently live and work in London. I think we can all say that in the last year, our lives have changed so much. And I found the last year particularly hard. I've had to switch off a lot from politics. So I kind of shocked myself last week when I heard about this 1% pay insult. I was just absolutely furious for the first time in a year and felt insulted and upset.
Danielle, I think I don't know if other people are hearing a bit of a crackle too. Can you try unplugging your headphones? Is that all right? Just because I want to hear what you've got.
Give it a go. Is that better?
Yeah. Go for it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm not.
It just means there's no crackle. Yeah.
I'm not well known for being very good with technology, so you'll have to bear with me.
It's all good now.
Yeah. Okay, so the first thing that I thought was, I'm not going to do this anymore. But then I stepped back and thought, no, I'm not going to let them push me away. I wouldn't stand for anybody else in the world making me feel that I'm undervalued. And here we are now, and here I am, full of enthusiasm and ready to fight this pathetic 1%. And this is not how you treat people. 1% is not okay. The nursing profession is in real trouble anyway. We're short of 40,000 nurses, as others have said. Up to a third of nurses are expected to leave now. I know half the nursing profession are heading towards
Danielle, I'm so sorry to do this. I'm so sorry to do this. I'm just gonna let your computer settle down a little bit. Yeah, it's all crackling, and what you've got to say is too important. So I'm just gonna let it settle down a little bit, because it was fine when we were testing. And I'm gonna go to our next speaker, if that's all right, and come back to you to make sure that all the tech is all good. I'm gonna come to somebody who has definitely been supportive in Parliament, Zara Sultana. You are firmly and resolutely on the side of nurses and all of the professionals who have this insulting pay increase. Tell us why.
Thanks, Laura. Hi, everyone. My name's Zara Sultana. I'm the Member of Parliament for Coventry South, and I'm so proud to be on this panel with you all this evening, especially on International Women's Day. As Anthony noted, as 9 out of 10 nurses in the UK are women. I'm here to say loud and clear that this 1% pay rise proposal is an utter disgrace. We know that once inflation is factored in, it's actually a pay cut. So I stand in solidarity with all healthcare workers on this call tonight and in our communities to say that this is nowhere near good enough and we shouldn't accept it. NHS workers deserve a pay rise. And I don't mean 1.5% or 2.1% or anything like that. I mean a proper pay rise, 15% to make up for a decade of lost pay. Our nurses, our doctors, our cleaners, and our porters, all of our healthcare workers have been truly incredible during this pandemic. They have been on the front lines, battling on behalf of us all with huge personal sacrifice. And that isn't just working overtime day after day, but the stress, the trauma, the PTSD, and tragically, we know that the lives of far too many workers have also been cruelly taken by this virus as well. And what hurts the most is that so much of this was totally unnecessary and avoidable, but it was forced on NHS workers by a government that has deliberately underfunded and understaffed the NHS for a decade, and then refused to follow the science when the pandemic hit. We saw while the cameras were rolling that Tory ministers were happy to go to their doorsteps and clap for the NHS. Matt Hancock even shed fake tears on TV. And now the cameras are off and the attention has, slowly gone away. They think that they can get away without paying staff properly. That's shameful, and it's also nothing new. The Tories have seen NHS pay cuts for years, with nurses' pay down around 10%. And while services have been underfunded, privatisation has been vastly expanded. This pay proposal is just the latest example of Tories showing their true colours. And today in Parliament, the government was forced to answer questions on this pay proposal, but the Secretary of State for Healthcare couldn't even be bothered to show up. He sent a junior minister in his place. That's how much he cares. And she tried to justify the proposal, pitting NHS workers against other public sector workers whose pay the government has frozen, and against private sector workers whose jobs the government has failed to protect. This is classic divide and rule tactics, and we can't give it an inch. The Prime Minister tells us that 1% is all that we can afford. But at the same time, we're seeing they can find £37 billion for a private test and trace system. They can find £16 billion extra for the already bloated military budget. And they can find fortunes to give to their Tory friends and donors in dodgy COVID contracts, as well as a £40,000 pay rise for Dominic Cummings and £7,000 a day for management consultants. And if we want to, we can make the super rich and big businesses pay their fair share with a windfall tax on companies like Amazon that have made obscene profits during this pandemic. We can afford a pay rise, not just for NHS staff, importantly for them, but also for all working people. Finally, just to say that NHS workers have been there for us, and now it's time for the rest of us to stand with them in this fight. Let's fight for a 15% pay rise. Let's fight to restore the NHS. Let's fight to end privatisation. And if this government so dares to refuse to back down and trade unions are forced to strike, we will stand with them and force this government into another U-turn. Solidarity to you all.
Too right, Zara Sultana, the brilliant socialist member of parliament. Zara, don't go anywhere for a second. Come back and talk to me for just 1 second, because I think one of the things that you pointed out there, which is a classic divide and conquer kind of tactic amongst working class communities, is this sense that it's unaffordable and that other people in other areas of different sectors are suffering, and therefore everyone should kind of take the hit. It's a false dichotomy, though, isn't it? It's a wrong analogy to use. You know, 1% pay increase doesn't mean that it's going to make people in the private sector worse off, or that there wouldn't be solidarity for people in the private sector should they choose to take industrial action to drive up their wages. What do you say to those people who kind of try and use those tactics?
And that narrative is what the press will run with as well, because they'll just copy and paste conservative press releases into their papers, and people will believe that actually there isn't enough money for this pay rise, and that people should just be happy with what they've got. If you've got a job, just be grateful. Working people should just be grateful for the scraps that they're given. And I think it is shocking, for example, that there are more there are more food banks than McDonald's restaurants in this country, that nurses are forced to go to food banks and are skipping meals. We are the 6th largest economy in the world. There is enough wealth in this country to make sure that not a single child goes hungry at night. There's enough wealth to make sure everyone is paid a living wage. And all of this is a political choice. That's why we're here. We're here because of politicians making decisions that don't affect them, that affect the worst off in our society. And we can't accept that. Hell no.
Absolutely right. Zara Sultana MP, thank you so much for your solidarity, which is consistent. Thank you so much, Zara. Danielle, I'm coming back to you. Let's try again to hear what you have got to say. So this is Danielle Tiplady, from activist from the Royal College of Nursing, and you are a nurse. So let's see if we can have a smooth hear of you.
Hello. Is it crackly? Right. So I'll start again from the top. So I'm Danielle, I'm a nurse.
Yeah, it is crackly. I'm so sorry, it is crackly. Can you try with your camera off? And we'll try one last time with you off, because let's hear what you've got to say at least. Go for it.
How's that? So I found the last year really difficult. I've had to switch off a lot from politics. So when hearing about the 1% pay insult, I shocked myself. I was absolutely furious and insulted and upset. I felt angry for the first time in about a year. And my first instinct was thinking, I'm done, I'm going to leave nursing. But soon this changed to no, I'm not going to let them push me away. I wouldn't stand for anybody else in the world making me feel undervalued. And here I am now on this call, full of enthusiasm, ready to fight this pathetic 1%. This is not how you treat people, and 1% is not okay. We all know that the nursing profession is in real trouble. We have 40,000 vacancies. Up to a third of nurses are expected to leave, and over half of the nursing profession are headed towards retirement in the next 10 years. And if you add into this, nurses and NHS staff salaries have not kept up with the price of living for 11 years. 1% doesn't make up for this, and 1% will not attract or retain staff into our profession. I often hear nurses don't go into it for the money, but of course we do. We need to pay our rent, we need to pay our bills, we need to buy food. And at the same time, we hear the heroes narrative from the government, along with ministers saying nursing is a vocation. And each one of these just undermines and undervalues the safety critical work that us nurses do. This is all said in an attempt to make us feel like we have to keep doing it for low pay because it is our calling. And today is International Women's Day, and I thought it was important to point out that 77% of NHS staff are women, and 90% of nurses are women. Look at this 1%. Can we really say that the government values women's work? In this pandemic, I think, if anything, it's shown our value as nurses to the world, apart from maybe the Tories. And we know that low pay is driving people away from the profession. 73% of nurses say higher pay would make them feel more valued. Nursing is a safety critical profession. We keep patients safe. Without us, patient safety is compromised. I may be a nurse, but I'm also a patient too, and I need nurses. The RCN, my union, have started their Fair Pay for Nursing campaign and started an incredible £35 million strike fund, which was announced a few days ago. The government, though, are doubling down. Boris Johnson said only yesterday that 1% is all we can afford, but I don't buy that. With their wastage on dodgy PPE contracts, spending £2 million on refurbishing a press room and giving their pal Dom, when he was imposed, a £40,000 pay rise, 1% is a political choice, and the government are choosing, they're making the conscious decision not to pay us fairly. And the anger amongst nurses is palpable. We now need to work super hard organising amongst our colleagues. And if you're a nurse or NHS staff member, look up your union when you get the chance and see how you can get involved. But for the public, there's so much that you can do to help our fight too. The RCN has got various social media channels that you can follow to keep up with the campaign. And if you go on their website, which is www.rcn.org.uk/fair pay for nursing, you can follow the campaign. You can sign their petition, become an e-campaigner, share their social media graphics. You can write to your MP and share your disgust. And you can speak to nurses that you know and tell them about this campaign and tell them that you support them. And whilst you're around, you can have conversations with people online and challenge them, the misinformation. There's so much information on the RCN website and all other websites as well, and where you can put people right. And put things up in your windows and support us, and be ready when COVID allows to march with us on the streets and stand with us on our picket lines. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad we persisted to hear what you had to say. Apologies everyone for the sound quality, but I am sure you heard the excellent narrative, the excellent words there from Danielle. I am really pleased we carried on. You can hear, and I'm sure everybody can hear, how the frustration and the anger is palpable amongst all of our speakers tonight. Not only that, but tiredness. And you're absolutely right to talk about needing the money. There's no shame in that. And I think a second point that we need to make is that we ought to be valuing labour properly. So it is not, in my view, acceptable that we have people who aren't of the profession, who aren't doing the work, deciding what value of that labour is. And that is the basic principle why we at the People's Assembly, and I'm sure many of you, support whatever industrial disputes that come next, because this is about nurses, this is about porters, this is about NHS staff saying this is what we think we deserve for what we have endured in the last year of this crisis. And let's remember, a decade of austerity before that, for a crisis not of any of their making. In fact, it is they who have nursed us through. So the fundamental principle of solidarity is not just about it being, the right thing to do to support these people in their industrial action, but about the principle of working people decide what they are worth themselves, and that not being handed out from above. Thank you so much to all the speakers so far. Keep your comments coming in, keep the shares coming in, because even if you share this 1 minute before it ends, people will get to see what these incredible speakers have to say. Dr. Sonia Adesera, it is not the first time we've seen you. In fact, I'm seeing you on my TV all of the time now. It is excellent to see what you have to say. And you are, of course, a doctor. This is not your struggle, but you are here in solidarity because your struggles are connected. Over to you.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks, everyone, for having me. It's a real privilege to be on this call today with such incredible activists. And given that it's International Women's Day, a special shout out to the incredible women on the panel and all the women watching and all the women that have come before us, like our grandmas and our great grandmas who, refuse to keep quiet and refuse to take this shit and just kept fighting for a better world. So we need to keep doing that. And so this pay cut, as others have said, it's an insult and it's demeaning towards NHS workers. But I think it reflects a wider problem of what Laura and what Danielle said are about who and what is valued in our society, and particularly by those who hold power in this country. So, how do we feel when we hear about the work that Holly and Danielle and Jack are doing day in and day out, knowing that them or their colleagues are struggling to pay their rent? How are we comfortable as a society knowing that healthcare assistants who work, grueling 12-hour shifts, caring for really sick people, on their feet, physically and emotionally exhausting work, and yet they get paid minimum wage? How are we okay with our care workers, who, of course, as Anthony mentioned, predominantly women of colour, who are, washing, feeding, toileting, providing like intimate care to the most vulnerable in our society, and yet half of them are getting paid below minimum wage, and many of them don't have basic protections and basic rights, such as sick pay. And we also need to ask ourselves how, as a society, we've allowed years and years and years of funds being stripped from our public services, of dedicated workers being insulted with pay cuts, and the demeaning of those who are greatest in need in our society, with the callous welfare cuts that we've seen. Whilst at the same time, the richest in our society have got richer. We've seen more and more and more NHS contracts go to the private sector, and shamefully, as Zara mentioned, this government exploited the fear and the panic of this pandemic to give £1 million contracts to their friends in the private sector. That's taxpayers' money been going into the profits of shareholders. Now, the government are doing this because they think they can get away with it, and they have been getting away with it. But we can't allow them to get away with it, because, as others have mentioned, this is a fight. This is not just about pay. Obviously, pay is important. We need to pay the bills, but this is a bigger fight. This is about, as Holly mentioned, the future of our public services. This is a fight, as what Anthony mentioned, about the safety of our patients. And this is a fight about values. This is a fight about fairness and justice. And this is a fight for a society that appreciates carers, that values workers. And this is a fight for a better country. So, we cannot lose this fight. As Anthony said, we need to get organised. We need to get every NHS worker unionised. We need to have a united voice. And we need to be ready for the smear campaign that will come from the right-wing press. And just lastly, and this is to to Holly and Jack and Danielle, and to all the nurses watching tonight. I remember my nursing colleagues and my other NHS colleagues who came with us, stood on the picket line during the junior doctor strike and supported us through that time. And the doctors and other NHS workers, we will. I can speak specifically for the doctors. We will be with you. We are supporting you. I have just so much respect and full solidarity to all of you, and we will be behind you in this struggle and in this fight. So thank you very much for having me here today on this platform.
Thank you so much for coming. And people are saying, oh, I'd really like to watch this back. You can. It's all going to be on the People's Assembly page to listen to what people have to say. I think we're at a point of a critical mass, don't you, Dr. Sonia Adesera, in the sense that there's not only like cross-professional support because of the immense and I imagine very intense experience that you have all just been through together, but a population who are in servitude, who are absolutely just so grateful to this system for being there when we've had such a great health threat.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I think we need to use this opportunity. And I think we need to, as I think it was, what I think it was Anthony who's saying this, that we need to we have to make sure that we're bold with our demands. So we can't, don't go in accepting, oh, we want 5%. No, know what you want, have boldness in what you're asking for, and you deserve it. You deserve to be paid decently, and you're not asking for something. You're not asking for, you're not asking for packets of gold. You're asking for sort of decent, respectable pay. So I think there needs to be. I think the public are overwhelmingly, behind NHS workers, and particularly behind our nursing staff, and I think actually. I think the pandemic has brought people together. In the NHS, it's brought people together. And I think wider in society, we've seen how reliant we are on different people. And actually, we've seen how reliant we are on our carers, on also, our delivery drivers, our supermarket workers. We've actually seen who are the really important people in society. They're not Jacob Rees-Mogg. They're actually the people who are working in your local shop, who are caring for your loved ones in the care home. They are the people in society who actually are doing the care work and keeping the society together. So I think we need to use this opportunity, be bold in our demands, and but I think we need to be prepared because, with the junior doctors strike, initially there was a lot of support from the public, but then there was a strong campaign in the press against the junior doctors, and they went against particular sort of the union leaders, and I think that meant that people, particularly in the union, felt a bit shaken up by it. And then we became more weak in our demands, and actually we allowed a lot of things to go through with the contracts which we shouldn't have. So I think we need to sort of be prepared for that, and keep a strong voice together and know what we're asking for.
Absolutely right. Thank you so much, Sonia. I think it's a well-trodden tactic, isn't it? That if you see broad-based support, if you see this outpouring of gratitude and just absolute adoration for this service, then people are going to start chipping away to undermine that solidarity. And so we will be here as a People's Assembly beating the drum in solidarity, making sure that people do not forget that outpouring, which I know stuck in, I know not everybody liked, but the clapping for care workers and key workers as an expression of that gratitude, that is turned into practical solidarity now. And we don't let those forces, people in the media, people in government, try and chip away at that working class solidarity. Our final speaker, Jack Berry, is an intensive care nurse. I think this is the third time I've spoken to you, Jack, and I am really actually keen to see how you are. You're an intensive care nurse, and I really want to hear about your contribution. But first of all, how are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. I've been an ICU nurse for 8 years now, so not new to it. But I remember the last time we spoke, I think the first time we spoke, I said, "Oh, Laura, it's going to be a rough ride," and I don't think we even knew the half of it. It's been, particularly this second wave, protracted. It's been preventable, and I think me and my colleagues have been left feeling like we're just bearing witness to immeasurable human suffering, person after person. Sometimes it's people we know, sometimes it's members of staff, and a sense that we can't spread ourselves thinly enough. And that's a really difficult thing for anybody to have to deal with, but particularly for ICU nurses who usually nurse people on a one-to-one basis because these people are so sick. So yeah, it's been tough, and there have been times where I felt like just like a human buffer zone between these very sick people and the government's disastrous pandemic strategy. So it's no surprise really that 40% of intensive care staff are reporting symptoms of PTSD. For me, I think there will be things that I will never be able to speak about. So the 1% offer really did add insult to injury. I think for all of us, but particularly at this end of the wedge. But Laurie, I've got to say it's a risky strategy on the part of the Tories, I think, because I've been a trade union activist for as long as I've been an intensive care nurse, and they've always been able to get through poor pay offers in the past because they've been divisive, because they've offered a little bit to some of the lowest paid. They've pit one section of staff against another. We'll give something to the new starters, but the experienced staff won't do so well. But on this occasion, they've made, I think, quite a cavalier step of going for everybody at the same time, 1%. And part of me thinks, are they just testing us? Are they just trying to see how broken we are and what we're prepared to swallow? So I think for that reason, it needs to be very firmly rebuffed. I think our unions collectively, because I mean, we're all in different unions here, but they need to collectively issue a call for industrial action. I don't think we should wait around for the pay review body to make its offer, partly because I think that gives the Tories and the press, if people have talked about, the opportunity to start creating an alternative narrative that we're greedy, that we're not grateful, and that we're somehow responsible for the job losses in private companies. But I think most importantly, as everybody said this evening, there's a lot of anger out there, and we need to mobilise that. I think if calls are not made, then people will be demobilised and confidence will be sapped. Action is not something that people want to take lightly, and it can't be called. It's got to be built for. We've got some of the most restrictive trade union legislation in the Western world in this country. We've also got some union leaders which have been small c conservative when it comes to taking action. We've been through a decade of austerity in which we've lost 20% of the value of our wages and taken a grand total of 8 hours of industrial action on that question. So I think we need to think about things that we can do to build confidence, things like local demonstrations, lunchtime protests. Those things will allow us also to map support in the workplace, develop a new generation of union activists, of stewards. I would love to have in my hospital a steward on every ward, so that we can build a grassroots movement from the bottom up. So I mean, I think obviously there's a need as well for a cross-union campaign that is going to do that. I don't think that it's helpful for us all to just say, right, we'll go off to this union or go off to that union. Not that anybody's saying that, but I think we need to build a movement that can win across our unions, not just for this restorative pay rise that we are more than entitled to, actually, but to start a process of transforming our unions into the fighting organisations that we need them to be, because whatever happens, we're going to have to withstand more Tory cuts.
Thank you so much, Jack. And last time, and I don't want you to speak about anything that you're not comfortable with. I mean, your industrial analysis is absolutely excellent. I think, though, that a lot of the work that you do, because intensive care units are so private and they are, really personalised care for those people who desperately, they're so poorly, the people that you meet. I'm not sure that people appreciate, if you've never been on an intensive care ward, how intense they are. And I have some personal experience from this. I've spoken about it briefly before when my father was in a coma. The intricacy of the work that you do, the care, the detail, the attention, the idea that then you would be stretched on top of, overburdened in the care that you have to give on top of that, is actually, it's just so traumatic. So traumatic. And I just wondered if you would say a little bit about, well, of course, it's such a specialist kind of nursing, but what the crisis has actually been like on top of being an intensive care nurse, to give people some idea of what you've gone through.
Well, we, as I said, we nurse people on a one-to-one basis in ICU, and that's because they require organ support, which I guess is a polite way of saying they need machines and round-the-clock nursing care to keep their organs functioning. So when you have one nurse looking after two patients, that means that that person in organ failure is getting half the nursing attention that they need to have a shot at getting out of an ITU. Now, I can't say with any certainty whether or not stretched nursing ratios has had a direct impact on the number of people that have died, because there just isn't the data necessarily to support that, and it's a new disease which we're still developing our medical knowledge of. But certainly in terms of the trauma, the mental and emotional damage that's done to the staff that are trying to do that care has been huge, because you go into an ITU because you want to be able to give your patients the very best care and your full time and your full attention, and they need it. So you can have two very sick people deteriorating at the same time and not be able to get to both of them. And that's something I think that is very hard to take. And to be honest, we won't know the real impact of it on our well-being, I think, for a while yet. What I would say though is that it's kind of picking up from what Danielle was saying. This campaign and this fight against 1% has been a real tonic for me, and I think although things have been really difficult, when working people stand together, they lift up even the most broken members of the family.
I think, honestly, Jack, thank you so much. I'm going to kind of bring everyone back in now. And it's hard to gauge, isn't it? Because so many of us have kind of been locked down for so long, and some form of restrictions will still be in place for quite a while. I sense there is overwhelming support for all of you. So what people generally ask, and this is where I just come in, whoever wants to come in, is how can people support you? How to create that solidarity for you now in this dispute to get across to whoever's listening that you're not going to be accepting 1% and that there are millions of people standing with you. Anyone come in now, by the way, and share this feed. Anthony?
I'm only taking myself off mute because everyone else isn't, so it's making me feel awkward.
It's all right, go for it.
I think that what we all know is there's 1.6 million workers in the NHS, so we all know someone who works within it. I think actually going and getting in touch with them and making sure that they know that they're supported by you, and that you'd back them, and that they should be getting involved within the unions, within the campaigns and the disputes. But also, as we've seen throughout the pandemic with mutual aid groups and the ways that we've all supported each other, there's loads of expertise within our communities. So if you feel like you have experience around organising or helping support people with this fight, getting involved in helping to actually tangibly offer people support is going to be really useful in this battle.
Brilliant. Anything else from any of the other panel? What can people do, Jack?
Just a shout out really to Unison members. We've got internal elections that are taking place at the moment, and there's a group of candidates that are standing on a very clear fighting programme called the Members Team, supported by John McDonnell, who I know is a supporter of the People's Assembly. So I'd urge anybody on the stream who is a Unison member to vote for that group of candidates. But I've also written an open letter with some other NHS campaigners sort of setting out next steps, which I'll stick into the chat on the screen so that people can check it out. All right.
Brilliant. That's absolutely fantastic. And Sonia, is there anything that you want to alert people of, any campaigns, anything that you want people to be involved in from your point of view as a doctor in the NHS?
Yeah, I think, well, firstly, donate to the strike fund. Sort of just put your money where your mouth is. But there are some, I think as Anthony said, everyone will know someone who works in the NHS. So support them, but also get them to join a union. And then there are wider campaigns in the NHS that are fighting against NHS privatisation, fighting for NHS workers' rights. So you've got Keep NHS Public, you've got health campaigns together. So get involved in these campaigns. Is that the people, it's not just for NHS workers, it's actually for everyone that believes in the NHS and values the NHS and what it stands for. So I think we need to sort of grow the health movement, as Anthony said. So just get involved. Like we need people. And there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and I suppose as and when industrial action becomes more apparent, it will become clearer how people can get involved. Say it's picket lines, or people are saying in the chat, and this is definitely something that the People's Assembly can help with. About posters and leaflets and things that explain what's actually going on. And of course, we can have more meetings like this to explain what's going on. But I think the People's Assembly have agreed very recently to try and help and support all of the different nurses and NHS groups with stuff like that, with literature, with meetings and posters. So please do that. I don't think people appreciate, unless you've maybe taken industrial action, how appreciated it is to just see that little symbol walking on your way to work, see the poster up saying we support you, or on your way to a picket line to say we support your demands. It lifts the spirits, doesn't it? And actually, I think in an age where algorithms kind of present to us a reality when we're online quite a lot, it can feel like there's something else going on out there. And actually, because we're not taken to the streets in the same way right now, I think it can almost feel like there isn't the support when there is. So People's Assembly help with that, posters, things out in the community, anything else that people want to get in touch with us is. Also, remember, we have local groups, People's Assembly local groups. So if there is a workplace, then please do get in touch with the local groups as well about any industrial action that might be going on. Did somebody want to come in there?
I can just say that, I think I can say this because I was part of the junior doctor strikes, that when health workers take industrial action, generally, I think all workers going on strike is not easy, but doing it as a health worker is even more difficult, because there's a lot of guilt there about patient care and about it's not easy, and it's not a decision that's taken lightly. So if it does get to the stage where NHS workers are taking industrial action, we do need the public to vocally and loudly show their support, because it's going to be something that's going to be quite psychologically very difficult for a lot of health workers to do.
I want to just ask as a kind of closing contribution, really, and I just think it's so important that we try and win people. It is not going to be good enough to just convince people who already support us that the solidarity is needed here and absolutely necessary as this campaign ramps up. And I just want you to take like 30 seconds, 40 seconds. You are the professionals here to tell us what it would mean to you to have the support of the public, and why people should come and rally around this dispute to reject the 1% pay offer. I'm just going to go first to Anthony, if that's all right. 30 seconds, 40 seconds. Tell us.
I suppose what it would mean if they supported us would be that we'd be able to hopefully start to increase the fight to save the NHS. I think that it's important to remember that the issues of frontline nurses are also about whether or not you've got a politically mobilised workforce who are going to be able to defend it.
Thank you so much. Danielle?
I'm going to turn my camera off, not because I want to be rude, but just in case it starts glitching again. What would it mean to me? I know burst into tears yesterday when an Uber driver was talking to me about it, and said when I was getting out, don't you worry about anything, darling, we're going to get you a pay rise. Just knowing that people support us just means the world, and I do think that we have a lot of support, and increasing that would just be so heartwarming. So yeah. that's what I have to.
Thank you so much. And sorry, I'm really sorry there was problems on the sound there. I'm just going to paraphrase in a much less powerful way than you did. From what I picked up, that you met an Uber driver who was saying, don't worry, that we're going to get you the pay rise. And I think that is right. People tell us that we are naturally competitors, and this is just not what I experience. And I'm sure it's not what you experience. In practice, working people want other working people to do well and to succeed and to win. And so much legislation is created to try and kind of drive a rift in between working people and the power that people have to organise and to lift up their own pay in the workplace. And I really believe that we are going to see this solidarity in abundance. I'm going to go to our final two speakers to tell us what it would mean to see that support, to see that solidarity. Sonia, Dr. Sonia Adesera first, please.
Yeah, it's the question about who and what we value in our society. And personally, I value much more Danielle, Anthony and Jack than I do Cummings and his friends. So I think, this is what it means. It's about valuing carers and valuing workers and giving people the pay and the rights in the workplace that they deserve.
Thank you so much. Jack?
Well, I just think that, solidarity is the most amazing source of energy that there is. And, if people got behind us, it would be a sign that it'd be an act of solidarity, because the NHS was never a gift. It was something that was fought for and won by working class people. And it will take a fight of working class people to keep it, to defend it, and to extend it. And I think, not just for us here in Britain, it's the NHS is looked to the world over as an example of healthcare delivered for human need and not private profit. So I think it would give people struggling for healthcare around the world the confidence and the inspiration to struggle on as well.
Absolutely brilliant. Honestly, I hope this doesn't sound patronising, but I do think your time right now is much more valuable than mine. So I am so grateful that you have come to tell the People's Assembly again about what is going on in your workplaces, about your struggle, about your dispute, and given your energy. I know it's so much energy preparing for this and telling people, kind of shining light on quite traumatic things. So I really do appreciate that. And to everybody that's watching and to everybody that supports People's Assembly and supports these workers, this is about what we are prepared to endure. What are we prepared to endure as a United Kingdom? What are we saying is permissible and is acceptable amongst people who are nursing the sickest people in our society? Even in the crudest terms, having people on low pay is expensive for a society. It causes no end of harms in other places. And of course, when we think about life and how precious life is, and all of those people who have lost their life in this pandemic, one of the last people many of those people would have seen is the fantastic nurses, doctors, porters, cleaners of our National Health Service. And so it's time we turned all of that admiration, all of that solidarity into practical support, that we are there for you when you have been there for us. And this is really about saying this is not right. We're not accepting this, and we will not tolerate this as a society, and collectively we will resist this pitiful 1% in favour of what nurses and porters and all of the collective tell us they wish to receive. So thank you so much for watching. As always, you can still share now. Support the People's Assembly. Look out on our website, you'll see it anyway, for posters and things that you can order or download yourself in support of the upcoming struggles that I'm sure we'll see across many sectors. And just thank you so much for watching tonight. And I might watch the interview. I don't know about you guys. Are you going to watch the interview? Before we go, give me a thumbs up if you're watching the interview. I'll leave it there. We're not having a debate on any of that. See you later, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.